Cool. I think we're live.
Yay.
Are we live? Okay.
Let me share.
I see. Yep, I see it on my profile. So we're live.
I don't see it on Shad's.
Oh, I did it on my company by accident, so it's probably streaming.
I see it on mine.
All right, welcome. I don't know who's doing the intro, but I'll hop in there. We're gonna have a nice spicy chat today about Mindshare. We're gonna talk about whether it's real or it's just some made-up indicator that marketers like to put out there to make themselves feel good. But that's my own biased opinion. But I'll send it over to whoever is gonna help do the intros and set this whole thing up. I'm very excited to be here. Got a lot of people.
The moderator just got moderated.
I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know you're from Alpha Growth, but wait a minute. I'm kidding. Hey guys, this is Naruto, and today we're talking about Mindshare. A lot of buzzwords about it, a lot of yapping. So I have too many people today. Emily from Hype, Nate from Eclipse, Shad, and then Brian. But quickly, I want to get everyone's introduction, and then we'll get into marketing debates and Web2 marketing, what it is Mindshare, and everything like that. So Emily, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm Emily. I'm the CMO of Hype. We're a full-service go-to-market crypto native agency. I've been in marketing for 8 years. I started in e-commerce, direct response, SaaS. Been full-time in crypto marketing the last 3 years. And I will pass it over to Shad.
Hey everyone, my name's Shad. I've been a marketer for 15 years in crypto since 2016, 2015. We ran one of the biggest ICO agencies. We raised $250 million, worked with Consensus, Fembushi, did ICOs and GTMs all over the world. Now I run a highly leveraged agency. We mostly do incentivized deals. So we're like a no retainer agency. We partner with products we find interesting and help them fucking skyrocket. I'll pass the ball to Nate.
Hey guys, my name's Nate. I am the head of growth and marketing at Eclipse. Basically, all the go-to-market stuff rolls up to me. So whether that's marketing, BD, growth, community, that's all stuff that I oversee here. We are building Solana on Ethereum. So we are the first SVML2 on ETH that is leveraging Solana's Rust technology. Before that, I was at DYDX for 2.5 years, where I scaled the entire marketing engine there, was the first marketing hire, and basically oversaw everything from brand to growth incentives, as well as KOL marketing, paid advertising, everything in between. And before that, I worked on a variety of different clients at a company called Nielsen, where I basically oversaw non-Web3 marketing campaigns and advised clients on a variety of different strategies and scaling. I'll pass it over to Brian next.
Cool. Brian Culligan, founder of Alpha Growth. Been in and out of crypto since 2013, been marketing since I launched my second startup in like 2009, 2010, and got completely obsessed with it. Did a lot of growth hacking for Silicon Valley startups in 2010 to 2016, worked at an investment bank, and now Alpha Growth runs DeFi protocols and runs DAOs and does liquidity deals and helps go to market for chains with grants programs.
Love it. And myself, Naruto, I have my camera off for unknown reasons, but you might know I work as a senior developer at Avail project. We are a DLR. And I did a lot of dev stuff since 2020. So wrote Solidity contracts and stuff like that. But now I'm more of a DevRel/BD and everything you want to call it. But yeah, let's start a little bit of the debate. Before
Wait, Naruto, you're not even a marketer? What are you doing here? Emily.
I'm actually good at it. It's natural to me, So, but I wanna hear your thoughts, because I'm moderating today, so I'm not gonna be defining all these things. I want to ask you guys, number one, what is the Web3 marketing? And Nate, I want to get your thoughts first, because Eclipse has been on everyone's feed. So what do you think? What is the Web3 marketing for you? And then we'll, round around with everyone.
Yeah, loaded question. I'm sure everyone here can agree we're all just overworked because we do a lot. So I think Web3 marketing is weird because you basically have to kind of do everything. So it's like figuring out how to grow your protocol or your DApp or whatever it is you're working on, so whether it's incentives program, grants, how you establish flywheels. If you're on the DeFi side, the looping mechanisms, all that stuff is relevant. On top of that, now with how saturated the landscape has gotten, a lot of it has become like, how do you stay relevant? Mindshare has become this like huge buzzword where I think even like everything else in crypto, there's no consensus on what Mindshare even means. But to me, Mindshare just means brand awareness. Specifically outside the context of crypto, there's like two ways to cut brand awareness, right? The first one is just like how much people know about you, but then there's also top of mind awareness, which is basically of your specific niche, your industry, whatever. Are you the first brand or project or product that comes to mind? Crypto seems to blur these two together and then label it as Mindshare. So like, are you the first project that comes to mind for infrastructure or perps trading or a lending protocol? Crypto also seems to silo this specifically to crypto Twitter. I think crypto Twitter has become one of the primary distribution channels for crypto, which is why this is the case. But to me, Mindshare is not just about crypto Twitter. It's like overall relevance and specifically to your audience. So if you're a lending protocol or a sophisticated like DeFi dApp, right? Your core audience is more so like liquidity funds, liquidity providers. So like Mindshare there is more so relevance to those audiences as opposed to overarching audiences. So yeah, long-winded answer. I think Web3 marketing basically touches everything related to building a brand, building a protocol, and then growing that thing. And those are honestly two very different streams of work, in my opinion, that get packaged together in one role.
Is the question, what is Web3 marketing?
Yep.
Cool. I mean, like sometimes people are like, how is Web3 marketing different than Web2 marketing? And I always start with Web3 marketing means so many different things. There's gaming, there's infra, there's trading perp dexes, there's exchanges. So I just look at Web3 marketing as anything that has some type of on-chain or blockchain component to it. And within each of those different categories, there's different ways to go to market. So I think that's why I always have a lot of nuance, because it depends on what are we actually talking about with Web3 marketing. When I think of Web2 marketing, I think of anything without any blockchain or on-chain component. But that's my take.
That's a pretty good one. Shad, what do you think? I'm trying to find like what different opinions do you guys have, but yeah, Shad, please go on.
I think this is the least controversial one. I don't think of it as like a thing called Web3 marketing. I mean, if we take Stake, for example, they did 6% of all Bitcoin transactions in 2021, but it definitely isn't a Web3 project, but has higher transactions and throughput than most Web3 companies. Web3 marketing is marketing infrastructure, service businesses, DeFi, like maybe like 50 to 100 different core categories. So there is no like marketing for like the industry. I think like the only like unique part is like the specifically crypto decentralized part. So like, how do you actually launch decentralized communities and protocols that are truly autonomous that launch into the future? And I would say that's what Web3 marketing should be focused on if we are going to use that colloquialism for marketing whatever it is the fuck we do.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I would say Web3 marketing came about because Web2 marketing doesn't work for crypto. Where I used to run email lists. I used to do retargeting pixels. We used to do like spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month selling hedge funds by retargeting pixels from people that logged in on AngelList. So being able to do those types of campaigns in Web3 does not work. Email lists do not work. Advertising on Facebook does not work. So we have to go around these roundabout ways and play these other games that are generally APR based and point based and these types of things to incentivize people with actual money. Well, actual token versus different things to make them move.
And just to add to Brian's point, I mean, it's an always changing matter. He said, we don't use Facebook. We don't use Facebook anymore. But in 2016, 17, and 18, we spent easily 9 figures on ads on like Meta for like ICOs. Like that was the original Meta. I mean, there's always like a new Meta. There's like a Quest Meta. Now there's like a Mindshare Meta. And Web3 marketers love to think these things are special.
I'd love to add to that too. In 2022, we spent 3 to 4 million across like on-chain ad placements, tested Meta and Google as well. Back then you had to use like landing pages with a different domain and change the copy to get past compliance. I do think there are some crossovers where you can use Web2 growth tactics, but to ultimately get TBL or get holders, you do need to play other types of games.
I also think like back in 2021, like, you know, a lot of like these scam projects started using Twitter ads, which like, I would know that it's a scam project or my wallet's going to get drained. So why do I use it? I don't even look at these ads on Twitter. So yeah, definitely agreed with all of you guys.
2 weeks ago, Google Ads, Superbridge, Optimism's like Bridge has an ad of a Google phishing scam link. Like I pinged them. Yeah. I mean, it's still there right on SEO.
Yes, exactly. Right. So it's so crazy to think like Web2 marketing would even be, thought about to be used in Web3. It cannot be used. The ads don't work. I agree with you guys here. So moving on, like, we talked about the Web3 marketing, and I want to get into like Mindshare as well on like how do you guys define the Mindshare? But before that, I want to know like how did it all start? Like, how does the Web3 marketing start? And then how did it change to the Mindshare game, which everyone keeps talking about, especially Kaito being there. And then I saw like a Vitalik's post about Mindshare value as well. Any thoughts you guys have over there?
Yeah, I think this is where the debate will start to get contentious because Shad and I are obviously on opposite sides here. In my opinion, I think there's two real catalysts for why Mindshare started to matter so much. The first one is that I think meme coins and the recent like speculation that just went into overdrive in the last like 2 years has really changed the landscape, right? Because before, like we had a lot of like infrastructure VC backed tokens, and that's what a lot of people would buy into. But now like there's millions of different tokens that launch every day. And like these traders are basically trading based on momentum and hype and like what is kind of capturing narrative and like overall awareness or like anticipation. So like right now, like AI is like a huge thing with these AI agents, and like DeFi AI is like this new thing. And I think that's kind of changed the way that you have to interact with people that might speculate on things. The second thing is I think the market has gotten a lot more saturated. So when I was at DYDX, like transparently, DYDX was probably the only relevant perp DEX at the time. So like what it really boiled down to is just like, are you establishing enough incentives for people to trade size? So like a lot of stuff on perp DEXs or lending protocols and these like DeFi projects is basically subsidized, right? So whether it's points, whether you're farming something, whether it's passive yield, whether it's rebates, rewards mechanisms, basically allow people to trade stuff or move money around and stack different things so that they make money. But what's changed now is that for every single perp DEX lending protocol or what have you, not on the DeFi or infrastructure side, there's like dozens of competitors you have to compete against that are all giving different rewards mechanisms. So now it's not just about, okay, like what is the yield that you're offering, but it's also like, oh, are you guys relevant? Do people care about you? Are people optimistic about the rewards that you're actually offering as opposed to just flat out numbers? So I think a really good example of this is actually Barachain that launched Boyko, which is like a pre-deposit campaign and has over $1 billion worth of deposits right now. I don't think that's because there's not explicit incentives for any retail audiences that are depositing there. A lot of that has to do with Mindshare and how much momentum the ecosystem is perceived to have. But I know Shad and Brian probably disagree with me on this, so I'll hand it over to them.
Are we defining Mindshare? What are we doing?
I think Naruto asked, how did this whole Mindshare meta even come about?
Yep. You can go on with defining Mindshare first, and then also like at the same time answer on like how did it even start and why does it matter?
Mindshare is just an abstraction to show brand recall and penetration into the market, mostly used for consumer products in the Web2 market. So we think about like soaps and Coca-Cola. So when you say like, I Google it or something becomes a lexicon, you know what's first to mind, like that's literally it.
Yes. I love that. I love that definition. And if you are able to capture like lending in like Aave, when you think lending in Web3, we literally run a lot of like the BD and marketing for Compound. Nobody thinks about Compound, but we're still doing deals all the time. And the people we do deals with don't care about Mindshare. They care about security. When's the last time it was hacked? They have zero. They completely against what you said, Nate. They don't care about the Mindshare. They don't care about who's talking about it on Twitter. They care about the numbers and can we keep the numbers where they want, and that will get the deal done. Like 100%.
Well, I don't think I disagree with you, Brian. I think if you talk to any LPs, especially with the recent market, like a lot of LPs will talk to you about the hurdle rates, right? Like 15% is not good enough anymore. So what is the guaranteed yield I will make? And that's where I'll deploy my capital. I don't know if that same framework applies to like a gaming company or a consumer DApp necessarily, but I think on the DeFi side, capital is a lot more mercenary. The deals you're talking about are basically just like, what is the pure ROI of my deploying capital? So I don't disagree there, but I think even now, like Mindshare is starting to play more of a role, because I would have not expected, and this is not shade to Berachain, but I would have not expected the boycott deposits to pass $1 billion. And I don't think that's purely like a yield quote anymore, because all of these vaults and stuff that exist, like they could have deployed capital elsewhere, but it's like a pre deposit before a protocol even goes live.
Because of proof of liquidity rewards, because at the product level it's incentivized, because the whole product's like structured around
but also I
There's
think
no public token launch, right?
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot of optimism about the underlying token that will be given as the reward. So that's why the Mindshare matters, right? Because you can quote like, oh, if you deposit this, you'll get 1% of the supply of whatever this reward token is. But if people are optimistic about the value of that underlying token, then they're more willing to deposit more collateral.
Yeah. So we've got to get down to like, what are they really going after? They're trying to get paid.
Yes.
And they believe that Berachain and Boyko is going to pay them.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not because the baddies, and it's not because it's a bear. It's because they didn't have access to this, and they see all of this capital pouring in, and they want access to that capital. And there's no other way for them to get access to that opportunity or that investment. It's not on Legion. It's not on Echo. This is the way that they can get access to the token for the upside and get paid.
Right. And I don't disagree with any of what you're saying. What I'm saying is that the Mindshare, I think, determines what they think the upside is. That's what I'm saying, right? So like I imagine for a lot of these boycott deposits, right, what's happening behind the scenes is they're like depositors are getting guaranteed a percentage of the token supply is what I would imagine is what is happening. I'm speculating here, but there's no defined value unless it's based on like some sort of valuation that came before about what each of those tokens that you're getting is worth, right? So the relationship between the incentives that you're talking about and Mindshare is, if I deposit my capital, what is the upside potential of the stuff I'm getting back? And that's where I think Mindshare matters. It's not that people don't care about making money. Everything in crypto is incentivized. At the end of the day, capital is super mercenary. Farmers are super mercenary. People care about how much am I going to make for the cost of capital that I'm putting on these different protocols. And Mindshare kind of provides the upside potential of that decision-making calculator.
Question on that logic. Do people in crypto look for undiscovered gems or things that everyone else has jumped on and it's completely oversold? Where are the biggest money-making opportunities?
I think it depends on market conditions, right? In a bear market, people will flock to guaranteed returns and safe havens, right? So if I'm a lender, right, and I want to lend in size, during a bear market, I'm probably just going to go to Aave. Like, I don't really care about any of these others because I know I have guaranteed locked in returns on Aave. During a bull market, I'm probably way more likely to do stuff with like speculative assets and long tail risk because I know the upside potential is there.
I feel like we've got to answer this guy's question. What is Mindshare? Mindshare is the difference between the real yield and like the price to earnings value ratio and the market cap. That's how you can calculate Mindshare. Another way to calculate Mindshare is we did a LTIP rewards with Arbitrum, a brand new vault token, vault platform called Vaultcraft. They needed to get to like 20% APR at the time or more. And anything over 20%, like everybody would pile in their capital. So like if it was at 25%, they would get millions of dollars of capital until it got back down to 20%. For Compound, it was around 10%. We could pretty much get infinite capital at anything over 10%. So if you look at the Mindshare differentiation, I would say the quantifiable Mindshare of the lendiness of Compound versus Vaultcraft, that was like a brand new vault product, was about 10% APR.
Okay, wait. I got a question too. I got a question, and then this is I'll take an example of Blast L2. Right? They got a lot of Mindshare when they said like, oh, deposit to this multisig and this is an airdrop. But then what happened there? Or like any other protocol that gets a lot of Mindshare. This is my question to like people who are for, and what I want to know is like, if there's too much Mindshare, there's also too much dilution. But if there's no Mindshare, do people even know about it? So maybe like it's a question for both of you, both of the sides. Is there need to be a balance, or is there need to be proper Mindshare tapping into versus no Mindshare at all? What do you guys think? And this is just out of the box question. Was it too long?
I think blast rug people. And that's like a perfect example of speculative like mind share of like where it ends up. It either becomes real and maybe it becomes real next cycle, like where blast is in a different position. And if it stays lindy enough and they can kind of keep their stuff together on a long enough time horizon, it becomes real. But a lot of the mind share and a lot of the speculation, it feels pump and dumpy to me. Like I've been in 3-4 cycles now.
Given that logic, do you think that Boyko may see the same kind of Boyko protocol may see the same things, or no?
Yeah, so this is where it gets weird. I know some information about Berachain that's not public, and they are backed by pretty much nation states. Like it's an insane amount of capital. So they're like a really rare one that may be able to pull it off just because of the nascent capital that they're pulling in, like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And now they got $1 billion. So, day one, they might be out there with like $2 billion of TVL. And that might be enough to make an emergent ecosystem. So I think like the way that we frame it internally is like contrived activities versus emergent activities. If you're looking for like modularity, composability, and get people to build on top of you, you want to like decentralize the risk and then kind of centralize the innovation. So there's like, we can build all these composable modular components and get a whole lot of mind share, and maybe something will happen. Or we can have like a liquidity deal, and we can structure that liquidity deal and get some interest rates and then make it like very contrived single stroke deal. And what we've seen from our activities, we can focus on mind share and marketing, or we can get into like the structure of a particular deal. And we focus on the structure of the particular deals.
Okay. Got your point. Please do not share some alphas that you may know. Anyway, moving to definition of mindshare, since the questions still remain, but still, what's mindshare by DevStatic? Who else is left? Emily, you wanna put in some of your last thoughts?
Yeah, I've always seen Mindshare as a measurement of brand awareness. And I think that's like a very simplified way of how Shad explained it so eloquently. I also want to add nuance here that Kaito has this metric called Mindshare. And although I use Kaito every day, it's limited to crypto Twitter, Telegram, and some other channels. So in the Web2 world, we would do things like incremental brand lift studies to measure brand awareness. And that would require surveying people to see if they saw some ad. So there's different forms of how you measure mindshare, but I just want to add that out there because we might be saying this word mindshare, and semantically it means something different in all of our heads. But I've always seen it as a measurement of brand awareness, which in the context of using Kaito for mindshare, it's purely looking at crypto Twitter, and that's a very small TAM.
Okay, I think I agree with all of your statements. Pretty, interesting answers. Okay, so everyone agrees here what mindshare is. Now I want to give floor to you guys having an opening statement for why do you believe the mindshare is important or why you believe it's not important. And we have already touched a few points, but I want to give it floor to the people for 4, and you have like roughly 7 to 8 minutes to present your case. Who wants to go first? Emily, Nate?
Emily, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I'm presenting my case on why mindshare.
Why mindshare matters. I'm happy to go next.
Okay, cool. I see it really, really simplified. So I actually did not review the thread where I got roped into this, but I think I saw a commentary between Nate and Shad, and it was super binary. It was like, mindshare does matter. And then the other side was like, mindshare does not matter. And I'm on the camp of, do I have data? I am not prepared. I'm on the camp of, mindshare does matter. Like at Hype, when we are doing work for clients, one of the main things we look for is we want clients to leave happy, looking back retrospectively on a campaign. Like we're really proud of the work that we came out of Hype with. And one of those measures that we look at is mindshare alongside other campaign KPIs, depending if they're pre-TGE or post-TGE. I will say this is a very different world than Web3. Like if coming from performance marketing, if you came to a client and was like, here's your impressions, you would just get laughed at. In the Web2 marketing world, you need to look at revenue, CPA, ROAS. specifically in crypto, where we work with a lot of pre-product and even pre-token, because ultimately I do think token is the biggest marketing driver, token price that is. We do look at metrics like awareness and impressions and how many people are joining the perceived community, which could be socials or Telegram. So I always look at Mindshare and crypto marketing as top of funnel, similarly to what you guys were saying earlier. Whether or not Chain is funded by nation states or not, to even have that speculative value or yield, I need to know about it. So I need to have some form of distribution. So I look at Mindshare as top of funnel. And the reason I think it matters is because once you can capture people top of funnel, then you can start to qualify, are these people that will actually stick? And then you can continue to optimize your protocol or whatever your campaign is to retain those users.
Yeah, I largely agree with pretty much everything Emily said. I think the additional nuance I'll add is like how much the top of funnel matters, I think directly correlates with how speculative your business is. So like Brian was saying with like DeFi, for example, like lending protocols and whatnot, I think it matters a lot less transparently because I think it just boils down to X's and O's and numbers and like yield and returns. That's it. Like if you talk to any liquidity provider, they'll tell you the same exact thing. So I would never steer a DeFi protocol on Eclipse to optimize for Mindshare or anything like that, because what you have to do is establish flywheels and basically incentivize usage. Hyperliquid's airdrop is a great example of this. On the other hand, I think if you're infrastructure, if you're an NFT project, a meme coin deployment, a game, I think this is where it starts to matter a lot more because the more awareness you have and the more that you're talked about, the more other people want to participate in that ecosystem. And that's what kind of drives your conversion and usage and retention. So I think there's nuance here. And I think where it gets complicated is that with Web3, there's all these different businesses and incentivization is kind of the crux of a lot of these businesses. But the degree to which noise and signal and narrative matters shifts a lot based on what the actual core product offering is and the end user. So the way that I would communicate with a retail user is very different than that of an LP or a market maker, for example. But yes, largely agree with everything Emily just said.
Okay, I understand that. One quick question to you guys, since you guys already have the floor. What if you are a chain ecosystem, right? And you have done enough marketing, and I don't want to get into like, too much alpha kind of things or things that we can't talk about, but post TG versus pre TG. Quick thoughts. What do you think about it, Nate?
I think pre-TGE or pre-product, you have the luxury of only focusing on Mindshare because you have no product, right? So all you have to do is just build momentum around like what you're going to ship and build a narrative there. I would love to say post-TGE. I don't think Mindshare matters, but I don't think the market is reflecting that at all. Like I see plenty of protocols that do TGE and then set up these like KOL deals and marketing strategies where they basically get people to promote the token or shill the token so that a lot of people think there's momentum there. There's additional incentives. So there are like speculation around like the upside potential. And that's kind of how they, for lack of a better word, pump the token. So yeah, I'd say pre-TGE Mindshare matters the most, but even post-TGE, I would say that like business practices suggest that Mindshare does matter a lot.
I feel like Shad has some opposing views, so we'll take the floor to Shad and Brian, and then let them have the opening statements on their against and what do they think about post and pre-TGE.
Okay, so I can start. So first of all, just really quick, Emily scared me because I thought she was going to make a full-blown fucking presentation. So I did write an opening statement. I'm going to need like 5 minutes to get through it. I actually came prepared.
That's great.
Like,
let's go.
Unlike the Mindshare people, just saying. So already put the effort in. Okay. Even from the first sentence, it's going to be funny because I wrote this in like prose and like persuasive prose. I'm just going to crack on with it though. But it's going to sound funny for at least 5 seconds. So going way back, let's just like get some context real quick. Herbert A. Simon, right? He's the guy who popularized this term called attention economy. That's back in the 70s. So this is before iPad generations, before mass social media. We already understood the value of attention, and academics and like really good marketers were already like building literature, doing studies, and using scientific analysis to show just how important attention was in marketing and why we should incorporated into our strategy. As we spoke about already in our conversation, you hear phrases like just Google it, or get some Pampers, or I want Coca-Cola. These are all excellent examples of mindshare in its truest sense at play. This is where mindshare is really important, whereby the brand literally takes over and becomes the lexicon. It becomes the first association in your mind when you're going to go buy a consumer product off the shelves at a supermarket. Thinking of mindshare is also an excellent way for you to gauge just how well your consumer product, your soap, your fridge brand, your phone brand is actually doing. But ultimately, mindshare is not the same thing in crypto. It's literally a brand word made up by Kaito, which didn't exist until like 6 months ago. So the opposition, a lot of people on crypto Twitter will talk in absolutes and pretend like gospel and mindshare is the truth, but it is not. For ecosystem-based decentralized crypto projects, it's in the name, it's literally fucking trash. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to present 5 main reasons why mindshare will turbo fuck your brand and team into oblivion. I'm going to talk about how ecosystems actually grow in crypto and what their North Star actually is. I'm going to state exactly what a GTM looks like pre-TG for a decentralized ecosystem, what to measure, and how to ensure it's a success. I'm going to look at mindshare itself as a metric and understand if it's actually the truth. I'm going to look at the market in which we're marketing and demonstrate why optimizing for mindshare doesn't make any sense. And finally, I'm going to show you why it can be detrimental to mindshare max, especially at the early stages. Ultimately, mindshare is not important. So first, this would be too easy for the whole conversation, but I just want to point out a few observations. I can make the observation, which I've done already to Nate and to Emily, that there's companies like Tether, who are the most profitable and highest revenue generating companies in crypto, making over 5 billion last quarter, even more than BlackRock. They're not using Founderiz, they're not yapping on X, they're not doing cringe mindshare campaigns. I can say it's the same for Ledger or even Binance, of which none of them are even on Kaito proper. They can't, if they work for the company, even see how much mindshare, aka this random number Kaito's made, actually is. And I would confidently guess that their mindshare on CT is probably much lower than Fartcoin or AIXBT or any of the yappers. However, they're making the most fucking money because they understand there's an entire world out there which is much more important to get attention from and base their North Star metrics on revenue, only revenue and profit. Otherwise, anything else is basically a mistake. But it's not fair because these types of projects aren't in scope for the discussion as we're focused on pre-TGE ecosystems. So let's quickly discuss some pre-TGE high mindshare ecosystems. Let's consider Mastercoin. Let's look at EOS. I mean, what's been more hype than EOS? It raised $4 billion. What's been more hype than EOS? What had more mindshare in 2017 and 18 than the EOS? And what's happened to them? There's many examples of high mindshare pre-TGE ecosystems that simply flounder out or were too much of a flash in the pan because they put all their mindshare at the go-to-market with badly structured go-to-markets focusing too much on hype. I could speak further on Pump Up Fun, and how they went to market emailing, cold DMing 1,000 builders to kick off their marketplace instead of running large mindshare campaigns. In all the use cases and all the examples I'm going to give, good growth causes mindshare, and it's a secondary effect and a KPI you might want to measure, but in no way is it a North Star. So how do we actually think about growing ecosystems? As much as people want to say we're Web3 marketers and it's completely different, actually, we're not reinventing the wheel at all. There's tons of literature on understanding systems, ecosystems, and the biomimicry analogs that exist in the real world that we can already draw information upon. According to the opposition, mindshare is crucial in launching these decentralized ecosystems. So I posit the question, why not just boobs? Why not just post boobs? Boobs, or really any posting of a female on social media, does wonders for mindshare, and teams like Barachain are taking full advantage of the gifts God has given to its community. If you did just want to maximize mindshare, instead of getting your, everyone to post every day, instead of contributing to the clusterfuck of AI slop and noise on X with your base takes, you would literally just hire OnlyFans girls and post boobs. Of course, we all intuitively know that simply won't work for serious people in persuading them to commit the nearest years of their life to building on whatever it is that you're doing. Further, I make the claim that growing an ecosystem is not a collection of funnels. It is not a growth flywheel, and there are no pirate metrics. In fact, it's a collection of different ecosystem agent entities within the ecosystem with a fiscal economic layer on top. such as validators, miners, solvers, builders, infrastructure, and the core tokenomics and growth levers that the project goes to market with. Of course, you also have the token holders and then the end users, the builders. But the big distinction between Web3 marketing and Web2 is the network effect. In Web2, the main network effect is referrals. In Web3, the main network effect and true growth levers of an ecosystem are fundamentally based on each ecosystem agent and the underlying contracts and protocol that lives underneath, and all the synergies that go along with them. Unlike in Web 2, where you're normally attracting both sides in a marketplace, in serious GTMs for serious cryptographic protocols and ecosystems, you're primarily focusing on the builder early adopter and the user early adopter, which has a massive overlap. So Ethereum attracts Aave and Uniswap, which enables Compound and Balancer, which together creates enough liquidities for L2s to launch, which creates incentives for new DeFi to use the underlying primitives. Ethereum doesn't do the marketing, because how can it outmarket Aave, Uniswap, and the rest of the runaway winners on its main chain and all of its L2s combined? They can't. This is actually how ecosystems grow and amplify their network effect. None of that Mindshare would show up in Ethereum's dashboards or in Kaito, even though a project building on the main chain is the biggest event spender and one of the largest consumer-focused spenders in all of crypto. If you got SQLite, HTTP, or MongoDB as a client tomorrow, you wouldn't be running Mindshare campaigns on TikTok to get more adoption. Why? Because Mindshare isn't important. So let's quickly look at audiences. Generously, you have a 1 to 2 figure total addressable market for whales that are going to stand up the majority of your liquidity. If it's over 100 whales, people with more than 1 to 5 million, that's already impressive. You have 2 to 3 figure total addressable market for people willing to set up real operations to support your validation or otherwise. And then you have 4 to low 5 figures for your builders, and maybe 5 and low 6 figures for the end users of those builders when you actually go to market over the next 18 months post-launch. Now, the funny thing about crypto is that if you're actually trying to build something innovative, your early adopter is literally the fucking Taliban. Your early adopters are people who want to build allegories like the Silk Road. Your early adopters are drug cartels and government agencies that want to leverage your tech. That's what real crypto is, like DarkFi, Tornado Crash, and others enable. I don't think I need to elaborate on the arguments, but a Mindshare campaign doesn't really make sense to such small audiences. Then you get the types of projects we're familiar with, a mixture of VC-backed or current fair launches that are bringing the next billion on chain, when in reality, it's a niche of a niche that will either be integrated into other projects or will be built upon. These use the same total addressable markets I recently spoke about. None of these addressable markets have any reason to have Mindshare applied to them, because you're max talking 5 figures, mostly 4 to 3 figures of people who actually care and will aid you in your go-to-market. And that's being extremely generous. Let me remind you, Mindshare is not important. On the topic of GTMs themselves, the opposition seems to believe that a GTM for a large moving decentralized product should be a flash-in-the-pan marketing activation with high intensity to score well in Mindshare, when in fact, ecosystem GTMs span years. The growth cycles are really long and should be considered as sequential stages that balance all the moving parts in a sustainable way that actually benefits the ecosystem. And that's the whole point here. That means targeting each of the ecosystem agents in stages as the software makes it available, such that you acquire all the different components that you need as you go along. Too many teams have crazy pressure behind them to do janky VC-style launches where all of the attention is around a single moment, usually their mainnet or TGE. However, for most teams, they don't actually have the luxury of planning out a real GTM for a real sustainable ecosystem. Again, this is for Mindshare, but Mindshare isn't important. Second to last, on the topic of centralized marketing and trying to create Mindshare, I posit that it's cringe, distasteful, and aesthetically ugly. It is the complete antithesis of the crypto aesthetic, which is to build decentralized ecosystems. It was only a few years ago when everyone was still calling themselves contributors. Now everyone is a CMO and head of growth. This tasteless aesthetic will not win over the diehards or the killers in the space that will actually come to your project and do something genuinely cool. They will be turned off. You'll find farmers and grifters, and that's about it. The entire concept of trying to do heavy centralized marketing, going to the point to get your whole team to maybe post on X, sorry, Nate, that's not an ad hominem, but like as an example, is a huge opportunity cost against work and starts to look really insane. Not only does it not do what you want it, which is to win people over to you, most people will find it inherently cringe, especially when we're speaking in decentralized systems. The goal of getting Mindshare, inevitably led by the reverse engineering of the X algorithm, means post more, post consistently, post for more things that no one else really needs to see. You've already gone past the point of critical information and have moved into the field of yapping, as the proponents call it, but they have nothing better to do in literal terms. In the core crypto space, you can see a big divide between projects, let's say like DarkFi and Aztec. One is cool and the other tries to be. Again, Mindshare is enough to ruin your aesthetic. Moreover, in the case of go-to-markets and high Mindshare go-to-markets, they can be extremely painful and detrimental. Too much Mindshare too early kills the community. You want the community, the early adopters, to grow slow and get rich. That's how you build cabals. If there's too much flash in the pan marketing, people can't get in. There's over Mindshare in the actual ecosystem itself, and it can instantly collapse 3 months, 6 months, 9 months after it launched. There is too much Mindshare, and that's the point I'm trying to make here. Finally, I'm wrapping up now.
Wrapping up. Yep.
So what should you be measuring pre and during your GTM as an ecosystem? Quite simply, everything that relates to its health. If you were to evaluate it like a living, breathing organism, you don't want to focus on Mindshare. You need to make sure your values are responding well. You need to make sure your go-to-market fiscal economics are working on the token and protocol level. You want to make sure there's a quantity of different ecosystem agents you need, along with factor and output. You want it to be sustainable with all the builders and the users and the economics and so on. So to conclude, do you need attention? Yes, everyone needs attention, including me. Is Mindshare crucial and important in the go-to-market? Absolutely fucking not. We need to stop speaking in generalities on crypto Twitter and influencing new marketers to go around focusing on the one metric that literally doesn't matter. And also at the same time, let's cancel Kaito, stop using the word Mindshare, and just call it what it is: boobs and attention. Thank you.
Okay. Too many thoughts here. Okay. If I were in the room, that would be a standing ovation. I really loved it. I think a lot of people in the comments are also saying the same thing. Someone actually texted me on Telegram, and then they are like, "Oh, this guy's goated." So really good. Love it, but too long. But I will give I will give some minutes to Brian if he has something to add on. I really love the Shad's point, and then I'll give one chance for team to kind of put some points against you, Shad, and Brian, and then you guys can debate a little bit more because we're running out of time.
It's hard to top that, and I can go over if everybody could go over too, but whatever. The thing we learned in Web 2 marketing is that if you A/B test everything, eventually you end with porn. You're selling porn at the end of the day. So that's where all of the dynamics and all of the ads will eventually lead to. And now we have TikTok and OF and Shad, like 80-90%. I agree with what he says. I think where I think Mindshare is really important is for exit liquidity, right? If you want to get your VCs out, you need to increase your Mindshare so retail can come in so you can exit. Otherwise, you need to build that ecosystem over 5 to 7 years, like kind of Sean was referring to. Another thing what we do is we go into ecosystems and we help them grow. We talk about the KPIs they want to track, and they're like, which KPI do you want to track? And you would be surprised how many heads of ecosystems or heads of DeFi do not have KPIs that they need to track. We're like, do you want more transactions? Do you want TVL? Do you want fees? Do you want users? Do you want volume of these tokens? And most heads of ecosystem can't answer that simplistic question because they were hired at the go-to-market phase. They were hired pre-TGE. They were like, I just need to hype this up and get more builders, but they don't actually know what those builders then equate to. So I don't know. I'm done there.
Okay. Love both of the points, and I think I agree a lot with Chad's point. I agree a lot with Brian's point as well. One thing really that mattered to me, or when I was listening, is that what are your KPIs, just Brian said, and then does this yapping turn into some kind of transactions or something else? But yeah, Emily and Nate, if you have some answers to this, you want to talk about, you want to say, or you want to counter Shad, please go on, because I know like Chad put on a lot of points. Maybe he can like, point or, repeat a little bit if you want. But yeah, Emily and Nate, flow to you.
Yeah, I don't know if this comes as a surprise, but I don't disagree with most of what Chad is saying. I also don't think healthy ecosystem building is mutually exclusive with generating mindshare. I think as I'm digesting everything that Chad's saying, I think a lot of it comes down to how we're optimizing for mindshare, and that's the frustration. So I think mindshare matters. We're an early ecosystem. Like, if I want to convince devs to build on us, of course, I need to convince them that there's momentum here. They need to know that there's potential here for them to make a lot of money as building a like dApp that they're bootstrapping off the ground. So it does matter. And there's several examples that he listed with that I think just exemplify why mindshare matters. So Tether is a great example of a business, right? So they don't do X campaigns, but what does Tether do? They do educational campaigns on the ground in developing countries where they basically try to build brand awareness and convince different businesses in these emerging countries to use them as collateral. Binance is another example of this. So Binance, what listings actually end up getting listed on Binance? This is implicitly tied to how much mindshare or how much momentum there is behind the token or how much people are willing to speculate on that token. If you want to talk about exchanges, Bybit scaled their early growth, like 70% of their early growth came from a KOL referral program. So basically they got KOLs or big, large size traders to evangelize their platform to other people and convert them to trade on Bybit. That's an example of mindshare to me. I think the difference is when companies optimize for mindshare and build nothing of value. There's nothing but vaporware. There's no flywheels. There's no actual product that's being delivered that drives value. So do you have healthy DeFi protocols in your ecosystem, which, like you pointed out, takes years to build, that basically can keep getting people to deposit collateral and keep using that because they're properly incentivized or their yields that they offer are attractive to liquidity providers? That's part of it. I don't view that as mutually exclusive with mindshare. I just think you need both. And I think any cracked head of marketing, CMO, or growth leader at any protocol would basically tell you, like, depending on my core clientele, the needs vary. But if I'm building like a game, for example, I fail to see how it's remotely possible to scale a game without mindshare, because you're not targeting 50 whales to build a game. You're targeting mass adoption where a lot of users come and play on the platform. So for something like that, as opposed to a perps dex, I can't just optimize for 100 whales because the usage of my platform directly ties to the amount of end retail users I have. So for someone like us, Eclipse, where I have meme coins that are deploying on a daily basis, I have NFTs that go live every week, I have 6 games deploying over the next 2 weeks on top of other stuff like DeFi protocols. The way that I would steer each of these protocols on their go-to-market strategy varies very drastically because they have to optimize for completely different things. And I would believe it's a genuine disservice for me to go to a net new game that's deploying on Eclipse and tell you, oh, you only have to optimize for like 50 whales. Like, that's what you need the most. Because I don't think that's the case. Yes, you need like power users for your game. But if you're a competitive game, for example, that pits people against each other, or it's a game that implicitly involves you playing and interacting with a lot of other players, you need critical mass. So that's where mindshare matters a lot more. That being said, like, I don't disagree with the premise at all that like you should not be optimizing for mindshare. I don't think that leads to healthy ecosystems at all. Like, I've told everyone that's deploying on Eclipse that this is a very long game. For Eclipse to win in the long run, this is like a 5-year plus journey. So it doesn't matter with these flash in the plan marketing tactics like you're talking about, where like you're relevant for a month, TGE comes along and then you die. Like, that's not how an ecosystem wins. So I don't disagree with a lot of the underlying premise you're talking about. I just don't view it in absolutes where growing a healthy ecosystem and establishing proper incentives is mutually exclusive with like stellar brand awareness. But Emily, I'll pass it off to you in case you have anything to add.
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of what you say. And Shad, I don't disagree with a lot of that manifesto. And I'd love to see that gospel on text. I got some messages too as you were preaching. You went off. I think one thing that I want to add nuance to is it sounds like we all agree attention is important. And there's just 3 words that I keep thinking about that sound like they're all correlated, but we're defining them in different ways. There's mindshare, brand awareness, and attention. And this debate came off a very, very strong take that these things don't matter at all. And the other side is saying they do. And I think it's not so binary like that. I do think there are a lot of protocols that have purely optimized for mentions or vanity metrics or impressions that get them nowhere. And there might also be people that are defining mindshare as how do I just get as much impressions on this one post that might not move the needle. I think if you are a marketing leader or a growth leader, it is important to consider that quality of mindshare. And I think that is what you're alluding to, Nate, of optimizing for mindshare. But actually look at mindshare quite correlated to attention, which it sounds like you agree is important. So yeah, that's just, I guess I'm just echoing both of what you two are saying.
There's a couple of different ways we can go from here. I think I want to talk into like the gaming factor for a second. When you put a game out there, yes, the only way that you can distribute the game is through trusted sources. There's multiple ways to distribute a game, but the most successful way is through KOLs, is through these influencer campaigns, getting it into a Twitch stream, getting it into a YouTube stream. But the whole goal is to get the user to take a taste. If they don't like it and they don't like the product, they aren't going to continue to stay, and they're not going to become a power user, and they're not going to get completely engaged. And so, yeah, I struggle, and I want to flip to the pro mindshare side and the pro attention side, because there's this window of opportunity that when a founder goes and raises money to the product eventually does what they say that they're going to do, is this speculative bubble that usually investors and you want retail to be able to come into, and there's this dissonance of reality. You have to get this like warp field around you as a founder and say, hey, I'm going to do these things, but they're in the future. They haven't been done yet. They're not real. So when you're in that space, mindshare capture and category capture is uber important. I have a friend of mine has David Sachs as an advisor as one of his early companies, and basically says, if you are a category maker, you can be a $1 billion firm. Otherwise, if you don't make that category, you will never get to $1 billion of valuation. And it really starts to think. So you have this window of opportunity where attention and mindshare are of the utmost importance. And it's probably at the time where you raise money to where you make that an actuality. And there's this space and time between that you can't actually do it, or you make it functionally. And my favorite one to put it out there is Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes. It's like, was Elizabeth Holmes too far over her skis or not? And the answer is, of course she was. But should she go to jail? I don't know. I honestly don't know if she should go to jail or not. And the reason why I don't know where she could go to jail is because 27 different companies spun out of Theranos that are now doing like liquid mollification and testing. Like you can literally piss in a cup and tell if you have prostate cancer now because of Elizabeth Holmes being the category creator. More people will survive, and the whole entire category now got pushed way farther. But she had the mind share, right? And she was the category creator, but it was all rug. So I'm like torn, right? Because you need that disdain of belief and reality and that warp field around you to like think you can do anything. But sometimes it rugs and sometimes it's actual. And that's where I struggle with the mind share and attention argument.
Yeah, the last thing I'll add is like, I think like core power users, right? So like for a perps dex, for example, I think is a very good example of this. Like if you want a trader that's going to move hundreds of millions of dollars on your platform, that person's not doing anything based on your signal on X. It does not matter. I'll be the first person to tell you that. Like what matters for them is how much money they're going to make. And if you talk to market makers, like this is tied to this too, because like market makers will tell you like, sure, like the rebates and everything are attractive, but the main way that market makers make money is by picking off retail. So when it comes to order flow, they will go where retail is. So the question here becomes like, for the retail audience that you're trying to onboard onto your perp stacks, for example, what really matters to them? Incentivizations are a really important part of that. How much money are they making through passive rewards, airdrops, that type of stuff? And also like, does it offer the markets that I want to trade? I think that's what it boils down to, right? So it's very arguable whether mindshare matters in that scenario. But then I'll think of like plenty of other examples where like stuff that you're talking about, Shad, where like decentralization is part of the core ethos of like crypto, for example, right? I don't even think there's consensus about that. Like Hyperliquid is not truly decentralized. Anyone that's trading there will tell you that, but that doesn't stop people from trading there. So like how much does like decentralization matter to like the core user base? I think is very debatable. And at the end of the day, like each protocol needs to optimize for, as you said, like revenue generation and growth. Like that's what a marketer should be optimizing for, as opposed to mind share. I think what it comes down to is like, as Brian's alluding to, like at that pre-TGE stage where you're trying to convince people to come into your bubble, like does mindshare have significant influence over that time frame? And I think it does. And that's basically where I'll leave it now, because I know we have a ton of comments to address.
Also, I know people might have to go, but happy to stay for another 15 to 20 minutes to answer questions.
Yeah. Okay. So if we have like, let's say 10 minutes, I do want to have, ask if there are some questions in the audience, or, like anyone want to ask those. We can go with those. Otherwise, I'll ask my questions. Emily, can you find something? I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, while more questions roll in, there's one that came up. Can you guys see it on the screen? It's for Brian on what is the source for that Theranos stuff. I think you're going to be the source of someone's rabbit hole.
Yeah, just like look up what's the liquefaction or liquid frac, like whatever the technology is. There's 27 companies that spun out of them. A lot of them were early Theranos employees. I have a friend that's one in Boston that's literally working on pancreatic cancer with a couple drops of urine. Like it's out there. Just do some research. You can Google around. You can go on to the next one.
I'm not really seeing questions. I'm just seeing a lot of glazing, and this is when Shad was preaching. Oh, we have one right here.
I think I flipped to your guys' side in during this call.
This is actually a really good question. I know, Nate, you would have great answers to this. We did something at GTMCon really going into the tool stack. Do you want to take this one? I think there's also
it's interesting. It's like Eclipse obviously experiments with some balls to the walls types of marketing in terms of stunts and stuff like that. But honestly, when it comes to measuring key campaigns, what I'm using is more than anything is on-chain data. So like if we do a bridge partnership, if there's an NFT launch, like how much is actually happening on-chain, which is a lot of what Shad was alluding to during his tirade earlier today, which was very charismatic, by the way. But like, are there conversions? Where are these conversions coming from? Are they buying whatever product is being promoted? Are they interacting with multiple different things? And then within these wallets, like what we also track is like, what protocols are they actually playing with? So something that's been super encouraging for us is like stacking, like is like a real thing, like looping mechanisms, right? So you'll mint some sort of asset on Eclipse, get passive yield or some sort of exposure to some sort of incentive program through that. Then you'll borrow against that on another protocol or lend that asset out. Then you'll get exposure to that protocol. So basically you're just stacking stuff. And this is what a lot of like the DeFi, like power users will do, right? Like that's the type of stuff that I care the most about when it comes to ecosystem growth, because those power users and like that type of behavior shows like ecosystem health and growth. So all the stunt marketing stuff is great just so that we can kind of be like a first introduction to someone. But at the end of the day, behind the scenes, a lot of the optimization goes around like usage and like how we're acquiring users and what they're doing. So in terms of actual solutions, I know Shad hates Kaito, but I use Kaito almost religiously just to check like how much people talk about us within the confines of crypto Twitter. I couple that with Google Analytics and Hotjar to measure like our website and how much people are interacting with that in the pages. And then I use Flipside to basically monitor all the on-chain usage and metrics.
I got a really like straightforward question. Do you get paid by Mindshare categorization and like how big your Mindshare on your team, or is your bonus associated with it?
No, not at all. I just think that the game's changed a lot, and with all the different infrastructure that's out there, like a great example of this is like dev convos, right? Like I'll talk to a lot of developers coming in. I thought coming from DYDX, it's like, oh, they just care about the tech stack. All they care about is like, is this tech optimized for whatever I want to build? And
care about money, bro.
Yeah, and they care
I've
about
run
money.
grants programs. They care about money.
Yeah,
and
yeah, they care about
incentives.
grants, but the problem is like grants also cause like huge incentives misalignment, right? Because there's plenty of builders out there that farm grants, so they'll build vaporware for a year, collect the payment, and then bounce to the next one.
There's ways to get around that too.
Yeah,
By furthering
yeah.
deeper down the stack. Back,
This is
and I'm
a
going to probe
whole
what you're
different
saying.
conversation.
Doing dashboards for transactions over times or users over times or TVL or fees generated over time, you can incentivize that not over just one spike or a build, but also a retention type of campaign that continue to incentivize the builders to build, right? So,
yeah. And this is a whole different topic. I'm sure we could get into this for hours, Brian.
but it's not. But I will pro that Barachain does not give away grants because they have enough mind share. But my standpoint is that they are preying on the hopium of the builders who are building there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not to say that Eclipse wouldn't necessarily write grants in the future. It's just been our philosophy that like early on, like we care much more about convincing builders that we see a long-term vision with to build on and helping them with everything else. So go to market, branding, raising conversations with venture capital, like we basically guide them through all of that.
Dude, we can have a debate on this too.
Yeah, and we
time.
But the main point I'm bringing up is like a lot of the developers you'll talk to will want to build an ecosystems where they see momentum because they see that's the best chance that they have for increased distribution. And that's why I think Mindshare matters a lot is like, I would love to say that these conversations are just purely intellectual based on the tech that they're building on top of, but they're not.
Sorry, if I can jump in, like if a developer depends on you for distribution, they're a losing developer. You as an ecosystem depends on your developer for your distribution. If you already have 35 plus apps on Eclipse, like you state, they have far more power to get mindshare than you ever will. Your ecosystem is your marketing. So if you're measuring like CRO stuff and adding like a hot jar and stuff to landing pages, you're optimizing for the wrong thing, right? Like they should be doing that.
I think it's a bit more nuanced than that, right? So like even Polymarket, right? Like Polymarket has found critical mass now. It took them years to find product market fit. It's not like an instantaneous thing. And a lot of like early bootstrapping happens with like, as you talked about, incentives programs, right? So whether it's airdrops, giving out money, subsidizing activity, and then these protocols kind of optimize for like, oh, this is our trajectory to product market fit and growth and sustainable revenue generation. So the reason why like the infra layer matters is like over time, I agree with you 100%. Like what's going to end up happening is the killer dApps on Eclipse will completely abstract away Eclipse from their branding, and they will drive awareness of Eclipse because the dApp has actual usage. But right now, as we've alluded to in this conversation, the meta is infrastructure layers get way more eyeballs and attention because that's where all the VC funding is going. So the infra layer can basically function as distribution for the dApps built on them for the early stages. But over time, like that's not how this should go overall. Like over a 2-year plus time frame, what ends up happening is these dApps find product market fit, lots of usage, critical mass, and they propel us forward as opposed to the other way around. But I don't think that happens like on day one.
I think the truth is Solana, Binance, all major chain L1s, they copy and paste the primitives themselves, right? So like Solana, like they'll have like entrepreneurship and they copy and paste all the primitives and drive liquidity themselves because they understand that those core dApps are what drives the growth of the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
For example, on Eclipse, if you don't have lending or DEX, you have nothing, right? You need stables.
Yeah, you need your core primitives, you need stables, you need lending, you need perps.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's like quite different. Like if you're talking about marketing Eclipse, I think it's very different from marketing Polymarket. Polymarket has a mobile app and can do, you know, app store ads and do like, you know, different types of marketing for Mindshare. It makes a lot more sense, but they're not like infrastructure. They're nowhere similar to like Eclipse or, you know, Polkadot or something.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't think we disagree. I think it's kind of what Brian alluded to earlier. It's just the staging and the sequencing of how this kind of plays out over time. Like I do not, 5 years from now, if Eclipse is like still like, oh, Mindshare is all that matters. Like, no, we were already dead by then. Like we won't have succeeded. But kind of at the early stages, like especially with like primitives even, or like any of these net new dApps, like our edge becomes like, if we have a really strong distribution network, we can kind of help these early like tiny teams, especially before they're like raising to higher and scale to like 20 plus to 30 plus employees to like scale the entire business. We can just be extra distribution for them. And I think that's generally speaking what a lot of devs look for.
The fastest growing network I've seen and that I'm a part of is BitTensor, and BitTensor has like extreme explosive growth and do zero marketing, zero distribution for any of their builders, and zero mindshare. It's all mechanic and like core growth. Like, what would you say to that? They grew from
So who are
nothing
the core users of BitTensor?
builders building these things called subnets. So it's ecosystem agents.
So is this like DeFi adjacent? Like, what are they actually doing on chain?
Building obscure AI shit like protein folding, solving cancer, predicting the future.
So who's
No-
the end user of this stuff? Is it just developers or?
AI agents, people who demand inference.
We could definitely talk about this. I'm a little confused, like who actually uses the product. I think that's what I feel.
Kind of same, but
Like if we think of like Solana, for example, like if you look at like Jito or Pump Farm, like there isn't like a centralized planning team being like, oh, let's fucking make like Jito and Pump Farm. And if we make Jito first, there'll be a way to like have really fast transactions. And then like a primitive like Pump Fund can be made. And you know, like, and we'll have sniping bots. You know, they're not sitting centralized. Like it all just like flourishes out. I don't think any of this is like based on mindshare or like core need. I think it's just
Well, like
random.
Pump Fund, right? Like there's all these people talking about the different coins that they're trading. That's just Mindshare. It's not driven by the Pump Fund team, but it's driven by the users. Like I think that's still an example of why Mindshare matters, right? Like you see all these people speculating on these different tokens that are going live on Pump the Fund, which encourages other people to trade on the platform. And then that's kind of how the platform grows, right? All this revenue generation potential, all
Kind of
this
unwind, bro.
speculative
It's
assets.
just maybe there's one or two meme coins that pop out of it. The rest are going like down to zero.
And they all, yeah, it's highly
It's like pump and dump, right? It's like crazy amounts of speculation.
Yeah. And again, this is a whole another discussion that we can talk about at another date. But yeah, it's interesting. Like we're talking, and like there's not a whole lot I disagree with you about. Like when you break it down, like eliminate all the buzzwords, like
Come on,
how to
Nate.
grow an ecosystem.
Where's the fight, bro? Where's the fight?
I mean,
I think
it can be nuanced, right? Crypto Twitter is super absolute. That's why I fucking hate Twitter. But like
the actual fight though is about Kaito, because I think that is
I
one
think
thing
the main part where you
agree on.
disagree about is just like why does Kaito exist?
I will join your side if I can get paid based on the percentage of mindshare I get for compound. If I can put that as an attribute and a KPI, an intention KPI, and I get a bonus on that KPI, I will come to your side. But until then, I'm going to focus on like it's me paid.
Yeah. So I guess question for you, Brian, is like, so Compound, right? That's where you work. Like when all these different lending protocols and stuff are popping on these net new chains and they're just emitting a ton of incentives.
We lose.
So how do you guys, it's just an incentives game for you guys, I'm guessing?
We lose. We have to go deeper down the stack. We have to go more to the infra. We have to make it about the numbers. We have to build the products that these other pop-up forks will not build, and take the time and work the deals. And then that's what gets our numbers. And that's what gets me to bonuses. And that's what gets us to
for sure
our re-election.
Yeah. Like, and again, like I'll reiterate, the conversations like I have had with liquid funds and market makers are very different than developers and end users. They're just like, it's a different game.
Yeah. 100%.
But that's why I think there's nuance here. Like I would never optimize for a Mindshare if I was a lending protocol. Like, that's not what matters.
To steelman your position at the beginning, everybody got rich off the comp token and liquidity mining, right? So the liquidity mining was able to bootstrap liquidity and give percentage at a higher rate. If Compound had a retail-based product, then I would have to focus on attention and conversion in Mindshare.
Yeah.
I think it's about retail versus non-retail. Is it a B2B or is it a B2C?
And as an infrastructure layer, we kind of have both as our core audiences.
Could debate that.
Well,
too.
let me clarify. We have devs and retail as the core audience of the infra layer. Then the actual DeFi protocols that build on us, some of their core audience is more the institutional funds, the market makers, that stuff.
Yeah.
I think to actually answer this question that's on the screen on what tools we use to measure impact for key campaigns off-chain and on-chain, Brian, earlier you alluded to something great, that a lot of ecosystem growth leads post-TGE, they actually don't know what to track. And I often found this at Hype too, where even worse, they weren't even tracking website analytics. So there was actually no tracking whatsoever. So I think the first thing you need to break down are what are the actual KPIs you should be tracking. And of course, it should be revenue first. If you're pre-product, you might need to use other tools. Nate, I think you mentioned Google Analytics for website, Hotjar for website, and CRO. You use Kaito as well for measuring mindshare of crypto Twitter. And then there's also Flipside. There's Block Scout for blockchain explorers. If you're doing BD, you probably are using other tools. I'm sure Shad has them as well. But I think you need to define the KPIs you need to measure and then find the tools to match that. The other thing is you guys also talked about apps. Tracking apps requires product analytics. I've used Amplitude before. There's Apps Flyer. There's also MMPs if you have a mobile app. All of these are really important to track retention of the product. But again, it depends on the KPIs, and you need to define those.
Emily, what do you use for attribution from off-chain, like on a landing page, to like assigning them a wallet?
Attribution, as in when they connect wallet and what sources they come from.
Yeah, and how, like, can you have it sophisticated when you were doing paid ads? Like, can you have like multi-channel attribution, last touch, first touch? I don't have like that setup, for example, so I don't have it. I don't have good enough data. Have you structured that?
Yeah, so there's these like Web3 attribution tools like Safari. I think Spindle has that as well now, and you could adjust. You could adjust the attribution modeling. Before these things existed, what we actually used was we custom built this out where we would get we would use PostHog and we would aggregate everything into a warehouse on the on-chain data. And then the connect wallet could be a button click that you can connect with the wallet ID and what gets connected post wallet connect. Then you connect it to the different sources. So this was a really heavy build as an agency where we're working with projects anywhere from 4 to 12 months. If I was in-house and I had enough scale, I would build something of this propensity. So we would use Tableau, some type of warehousing situation, and then you can build out all the custom channels. It gets really interesting too, because if you are in an ecosystem with dApps, you could also pipe in your, like the dApps data essentially.
Try to do that in here. It was like herding cats. It was really, really difficult. It was like next to impossible.
Analytics suite.
Surprisingly,
I think
Gecko.
Let's move to the last question so that we can close off. How do we turn mindshare from vanity metric into a flywheel? And I think Nate, you're one of the quoted one to answer this, but I want everyone else to answer this too. What do you guys think about this one?
I mean, to keep it blunt, I think it's just, are you providing ways for people to make money? Like, I think that's all it boils down to. I think everything in crypto comes down to profit and revenue generation opportunities. So whether it's a developer or an end user, it's just, okay, cool, I'm playing with this ecosystem because I'm hearing about it a lot, but like, is there a way for me to actually engage here and it's like worth my time? That's all it boils down to at the end of the day. Call me cynical, but that's what I believe.
True. I think Base did really good work there. Like, Jesse is one guy driving the mindshare for Base, and that's what they did. Got a lot of people, got the distribution. Brian, what do you think about this?
If I can get a bonus based on mindshare, we'll start to optimize for mindshare. But until then, I think what Emily alluded to in terms of attribution, the attribution tools aren't very there. We don't have like the same type of brand lift. We don't really have direct customer relationships like email lists or direct relationships. And that's why we have to subsidize everything and abstract it away to KOLs, because we don't have that same type of ownership of a customer that you do in Web 2. And once we lost that via decentralization, the pro is everybody gets to stay anonymous. Everybody has radical self-reliance. The con is the marketers don't get to own a customer in the same type of way. So they're going to inherently float to the next cool thing.
Yeah, I'll add to this. I think Brian or Shad, you mentioned this earlier, and Shad, I know you also said network effects in your gospel. So you said a lot of things. And also Naruto to comment on Base. So of course, Jesse brings in a lot of attention and brand awareness to Base. But to be honest, I think the meme coin trading was really happening on Solana prior to Base. And that just shows that you need actual apps and you need to retain people. So even though you have mindshare, you're capturing people into your ecosystem, but you do ultimately need the dApps there for people to stay retained. So mindshare is simply like a brand awareness metric or impression-based metric, but you do need to build retention. And retention comes from speculation, it comes from apps, it comes from utility.
Speculation.
a good thing where like you can get devs to start building, get the builders in, then get some users, but then you need to strategize on how you can retain, like the same things along the lines you said.
Yeah, there's tons of huge projects out there. I mean, if I was to add to this, like the best place to like, it's all about timing. So like we spoke a lot about pre-TG. I'm like very against Mindshare pre-TG. I think it should be organic, natural. That's going to lead to the best long-term growth. That's just my stance. That's what we debated today. The best place for Mindshare to go into a flywheel is token price. If you're pumping the fucking price, if you're an all-time high on your chart, everyone in your community is happy except for the people shorting, right?
Exactly.
And that's what's going to give you the most attention. So the best place to put Mindshare, if you are a marketer, which is the elephant in the room, is like token speculation. When someone asked about tools, my first tool is CoinGecko. Like, what's the token price? Like Deck Screener. So that's what I would add.
I mean,
yeah, no, I agree with that. Like our job is so much easier, and it's such a huge ego boost as a marketer when the market is in euphoria because everyone's just like, oh wow, we're so great at what we do. That's actually something I wanted to add was post TGE, the messaging needs to change to price action, which is why if you're on, like, for example, if you look at TikTok, before the Pengu airdrop, there was 11.1K videos on the Pengu token. No one on crypto Twitter talks about this. But all of these videos are all about price action and speculation.
For sure. Okay. Any closing thoughts for you guys? For the people who are there for Mindshare and then people who are against. And then I also put a small poll. I think I shared it in the comments. I also shared it in the private chat. If you're against or for the Mindshare thing. So we'll see who wins in 24 hours. But yeah, closing thoughts, Emily and Nate.
Thank you so much for all of you for doing this with me. Shad, can you like send, like, I would love to print whatever you just wrote. So can you send that over? And yeah, I guess my closing thoughts is I think crypto marketing has to have a lot more nuance. And sometimes we see takes on crypto Twitter about marketing that are, one, really fluffy, two, there isn't a lot of data backed behind it, three, it's very theory based. Really the only way is for you to experiment and test things. So I just encourage everyone to continue learning. I'm learning every day.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of fun. It's great to talk to marketers that actually think about like the full stack too, right? I think there's a lot of the complaints that I kind of agree with what Shad's talking about is like there's just a lot of fucking grifting in this space. And at the end of the day, what speaks more is like survival of the ecosystem, healthy growth, and like actually generating critical mass and usage. That's what this all boils down to. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. Mindshare is not just Kaido. I will remind everyone on that. It's not just your relevance on CT. So don't optimize for just that. And yeah.
Shad, I'm waiting.
Sorry,
I was waiting.
I would say always draw upon first principles when approaching. Never look to metas. There's launch metas, there's colored coins, ICOs, STOs, TGs, pump. Like there's tons of metas. There's the quest metas, layer 3 that will turbo one-shot your fucking audience, like just kill it straight away. How many poor protocols have died because of layer 3 in fucking Galaxy? There's always a new meta and always a new thing to do. Just focus on first principles, use reasoning, use simple, clear strategies, and you will win.
I had a really good time. Met some cool people. This was great.
Oh yeah, thank you everyone for hosting this as well. Yeah.
I love the Brian's cool attitude, calm attitude, you know.
Like I learned, hey, you know, in discourse, this is why we have discourse and debates. It's like, I'm going to be educated. I'm going to educate. I'm going to walk away from this and I'm going to learn. You know, I think it's a staged approach. And if Mindshare got me bonuses, I would focus on it, but it doesn't.
I think Brian's, Brian is optimizing not for Mindshare, but for bonuses. Now it all makes sense to me. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for having me as well in the last minute. I loved having you guys. It was a real nice debate. Shad, I'm a big fan now. Nate, you too. Emily, Brian, great work today.
Very cool team.
But yeah, that's all.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace.